Alright guys, this video is going to be a little different than anything else you've ever seen on my channel. It's going to be a story of perseverance and tragedy. Alright guys, this video is going to be completely different than anything else you've seen on the channel, and to be honest with you, it's a little bit of a selfish video. This is more for me and my family than what it is for you guys, but I think it's an incredible story and I want to share it with you guys. So let me kind of set the scene here a little bit for what you're going to see in this video. My great-grandfather and his brother, they actually were in the coal mine business back in the 1940s. And unfortunately in 1948, December 16th of 1948, my great-grandfather was killed in a mine collapse. So today my grandfather, which is almost 84 years old, is suffering from some health issues, Alzheimer's, dementia. His short-term memory is pretty much gone at this point, and he's starting to show his age. He don't get around near as good as what he used to. But as you guys will see in this video, he remembers very, very, very well what happened that day. So with time not being on his side, it was a beautiful day. Me and the family got together. We loaded Grandma and Grandpa up, and we headed out in the woods to visit the mine site. This will actually be the third time I visited the mine site. It'll be the first time for my kids, and I'm sure Grandpa has been there countless times. I think he makes mention in the video for a long period of time. He actually made a yearly visit to it. So at one time this was a very substantial mine, had infrastructure and roads going in and out of it. It's been 80 plus years now since this mine's operated. It's in a pretty remote area out in the middle of the woods. So with all that being said, we'll get into the video. After the video is over, I'll come back here and kind of explain, maybe in a little bit more detail, what happened and kind of the timeline of all the process. So let's hit the trail. We're getting close, Gunner. You know where we're going?
To the mine shaft.
To the mine shaft? You know who's what happened at the mine shaft?
Yeah.
What?
Whenever our great-great-grandpa was going back in the tunnel to find coal, the tunnel collapsed on him.
Yeah, the tunnel collapsed on him. Say, I've been here twice. It's been 16 years since the last time.
I thought you said it 15.
15 years? I'm sorry. This is your first time here, isn't it? You're curious to see where it's at? Hopefully we can get Grandpa back here with no issues. We're going to go up here. The mine is now on private ground, but the landowner is gracious enough to give us permission and possibly even escort us back to the mine. So we're going to go up here. We've got a couple of rangers with us. We're going to get unloaded, get grouped up, and go back and check it out. So,
and nobody's been back here for 15 years.
And nobody's been back here for 15 years. So you.
Or the person that owns the property.
Well, the person on the property maybe been down there, but nobody from the family's been back here for 15 years.
Yeah.
So, you excited to go see it?
Yeah.
All right, let's go see if we can find it.
What's that? Dirt on the top of that?
That's not dirt, that's my microphone.
Oh.
Are you ready to go? Are you all buckled in?
I'm all buckled up, ready to go.
What's the first thing you said when you got in my Ranger?
I'm honored to be riding with my favorite grandson.
No, that's not what you said. You said you at least could have cleaned the windows.
Yeah, you could have cleaned the windows and cleaned this
Well,
out.
don't look behind you, because that one's not any cleaner.
Oh, God.
All right, they took off his Alice, Grandma. We gotta go find him. You think Grandpa's excited?
Yeah.
Whenever you said something about going, he couldn't get out of the chair fast enough. I'm not sure if he remembers where we're at, but
Yeah, he remembers you guys. He remembers that day. Just like the day he remembers your dad got killed.
yeah. All right, well, let's go make our way back here. Yeah, I think they went that way. We're dragging up the rear here. We had some seatbelt issues with Grandma, but we got her strapped in. offering rides for $10.
Hold on.
How about what?
For $10.
Oh, come on. Macy wants to ride.
Nope.
15.
All right. Nice little 160s in there. I believe that's the landowners. Oh, now you want to ride when there's water involved. Look at you.
Yeah, I do.
I think we should charge him.
You can go.
Who got back there?
Everybody, Grandma. They decide they want to ride now. There's water.
Morgan and Andy.
Mom's on the back. Think we can shake her off in the water?
What?
So Mom's on the back. Think we can shake her off in the water?
You know, I know.
That would not be fun. Hold on to your beanie, girl.
Oh yeah, I got my buddy. We made it.
All right.
That'll be 50 cents.
Thanks for the ride.
Got some remnants of some old farm equipment on the way up through here. Got an old manure spreader and a seeder. Looks like there may be an old corn picker up here around the corner. Pretty nice little hunting shack on the way.
Like a trailer.
I think they use that for hunting.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. We just crested the top of the hill. This is starting to look a little bit more familiar.
Yeah. Thank you.
A little step at a time here. There we go. Go down there and visit your dad.
We'll sit on that.
Sure it's
Yeah, it's solid.
all right. I got you right here. You just spin around there. There you go. There you go.
Coming in over here, whenever you turned off a 545 and come up Johnnytown Road, that first house on the left, that's where back in that valley was where the coal.
Well, that's what he said when we came in. That was the entrance.
Yeah. The mine from all the way from out there from up here, and they're supposedly getting ready to poke out this other side.
Yeah.
And that's when it collapsed. This is an air shaft, and they had figured those 3 people that are buried, being as they were trapped, they was going to come to the air shaft, and that's why the tombstone was here.
That's what they thought.
Grandpa, do you ever remember coming out here as a kid?
Well, not from the top here so much, no.
Did you?
But in the coal mine, yes.
Were you actually in the coal mine as a kid?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So what would you come out here and help do? Just come out here and spend time with
He'd come out on the weekends and he had to pump the water off.
you come out here and help him do that?
Well, I just go along. But he let me down the shaft. There's an angle going down into the mine. And he let me down and he walked down.
Really?
Yeah.
And you were probably what, about 10 or 12?
Well, when the accident happened,
48.
I was 12. 12 or younger. I was born in 36.
He was about like amazing.
Yeah,
So you were 14 when the accident happened?
12.
12 when the accident happened.
Yeah. You know, I can remember the day the accident happened. I was in the St. Paul School up on the 2nd floor. About 10 o'clock in the morning, the sirens went down the street. Of course, I didn't know it was far.
Right.
And I'd go home for lunch. When I'd go home for lunch, I'd go up past Newman School, go up to empty lot where Zerker Hillick Funeral Home is at now, cross there where KC's at now, and I'd go in front of Dobish Store. And between Dobish Store and the house there was a walkway. And I would go down that walkway, and then I'd go over to 12th Street, and there's Mrs. Crest lived there on 12th Street. And so as I was going to go home for dinner, as I went through Mrs. Crest's grass yard, she came out and she wanted to know what I knew about the accident. That's the first I knew about it.
So that's how you found out, was walking home from school.
Right. And so I went home. Mother was in the front getting dressed. So when he got him out, she go to the wherever with him. And I went down to Grandma Fournier's, and she lived on 9th Street. And I would go and stay there at her house. But I'd go to church and pray, and I'd come back and go to church and pray and come back. And then they, up until, well, when I went to bed that night, they still were trying to recover. Then they gave up during the night.
I bet he would have never thought all these people would be here to see.
No.
Three
No.
more generations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very proud of you.
So you have, what was there, 5 kids? Because Jackie wasn't born yet, right?
Yeah, it's 5.
Yeah.
And then she was born after he was
Yeah. So your youngest sister never met your dad.
Jackie. Yeah. And then she remarried and had 2 boys.
Right.
So there was 8.
That's what Jacqueline, Helen, Rosemary. Jacqueline for Jake, Helen for Mother, Rosemary for Remembrance.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You didn't know that?
Next to it. That's very nice. Isn't
Yeah.
it?
I didn't know
Yeah.
either.
Jacqueline for Jake.
I didn't know. I never put that together. Did not. First time I think I've ever heard that, Dad.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So how often did you come out here after the accident?
Maybe once a year, I don't
I was
know.
going to say, when Grandma was alive, we used to come
Yeah.
out here a lot.
Yeah.
I remember coming out here a lot
Yep.
Yeah. when Grandma was here. At least once a year, I'd say.
Yeah, well,
Didn't we used to have a family reunion at St. Minded or something?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
So,
seemed like we always came here then.
Grandpa, after Jake got killed, Sylvester, which would have been your uncle, he pretty much shut down the mining operation, didn't he?
Yeah. He pretty much shut down the coal mine.
They call it the Christmas mine.
They had
And it
they
actually
had 2
happened,
coal mines. They had one over here, which is called the Christmas mine,
which was this mine.
that Daddy primarily oversaw. And then back over, and I can show you over there, we're on the farm that they owned. There was another coal mine in that, and Uncle Vess primarily ran that one.
Now, one thing that was a little bit unique about this mine is they were one of the first ones around here that actually used what they called the electric mule, right?
I think that's right.
And that's one of the things they were trying to do was get
Yeah.
some of the track out to take that to the other mine, correct?
Well, they were pulling the track out, but this mine, the way that they took over this mine, is full of water.
Okay, so it was an existing mine they
An
took
existing
over.
mine is full of water, and so they decided that they would try to pump it down. If they pumped it down at a certain time, then they would operate it, and if not, they'd walk away from it. But whatever at that time from was, they apparently got the water pumped off where they could go in and work the mine.
And from what I've read and what I've been told, this was a pretty successful mine for them.
Oh, it was, and I've been in that mine. I vaguely remember, but I've been in that mine. Yeah.
So back in the 1940s, what did they use to pump the water? Did they have gas-powered pumps or?
I think that's what it was. Might have been electric at that time because they had electricity down there.
Did they produce their own electricity on site, I guess?
They did. Yeah.
So approximately how many people do you think worked here at one time?
15, 20.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they run 2 shifts or 1 shift?
Well, they
or-
had 2 coal mines. They ran 1 shift. They had one here. They had one over there where the Uncle Vess's farm is at, or where they had a farm over there.
Okay.
And they had a coal mine over there. But this was the one this was an existing that they took over that was flooded, and they decided they would try to pump it down. If they pumped it down at a certain time, they would operate it. If not, they'd walk away. Well, they got the water pumped off, and then they operated it.
Now, they were in the process of closing this mine down because
Yeah,
they had
they were.
concerns about it collapsing, correct?
Do what now?
They had concerns that it was going to collapse. So that's
Well, my recollection is that one of the things that they'd always eat their lunch down in the mine,
okay.
miners. And so they sat down one day and had their lunch there, and somebody said, well, why don't we put a pole over there? That looks a little weak over there. And they put a pole over there, but it fit pretty loose. But 2 or 3 days later, it's pretty damn tight.
So they knew if something was moving.
Well, that's my recollection. In there.
And that went on for a couple weeks, and they finally decided it was time to get out, right?
Yeah. And they were closing it down when it happened.
If I remember right, Uncle Sylvester, he actually went down there and kind of pleaded with them to leave right then and there. And your dad, or my great grandpa, was pretty adamant he was going to get the rest of that
Yeah.
track out of there.
And he left. And then he decided to come back and make a second attempt. And when he coming up second time, that's when it happened.
I would say that that's probably where you and I both get our hard-headedness from.
Not only that, he had the weekly paychecks.
So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, it's pretty
So-
cool being back here again and seeing
So
this.
Uncle Vess was there, but when it happened, but he was walking back up to tell him, let's just quit and go on.
Yeah.
Because my understanding is it just kept.
Now, Uncle Vess,
Chipping off.
he was kind of he was more the office guy or the bookkeeper.
He was more the bookkeeper. That's
and,
right.
And Jake was more the
The hands-on.
yeah, because he was.
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere that he wasn't going to ask anybody to do something he wouldn't do himself, which is why he was down in the hole with everybody.
Well, they were operating 2 coal mines. This one, and they had another mine over there, and Uncle Vess kind of oversaw that one. and
right.
Daddy oversaw this one.
Now, do you know where they sold most of their coal coming out of here?
Power plant in Tell City.
Because Tell City Tell City is what, about 30 miles from here, somewhere.
I mean,
1920.
they sold a lot to the houses, but power plant at Tell City was the main source of selling coal.
And,
Yeah.
and a lot of people back then also heated with coal, so that's whenever you
Oh,
say
yeah.
sell it to their house, that's
Yeah.
where it went with that. kind of give you guys a little bit of a lay of the land here. From what I gathered, the entrance to the mine was a pretty good distance over that way, and where the air shaft is at here was towards the end of the mine, and they were actually planning on poking out that side of the hill. It was about 160 feet deep. The collapse was over there pretty close to the entrance. The reason why the tombstone is over here is because they believe after the collapse they went to the fresh air in hopes of being rescued, or at least surviving for a while. So that's why the monument's over there. So pretty cool to kind of come back in here today and see it again. And now that I've been here this time, I'm pretty sure I know how to get back here. It's also kind of cool to see Gunner asking a whole bunch of questions and kind of showing some interest in it. So that's pretty neat too. Now back in the day, this would have been a pretty minuscule small scale operation, but back in the day when this happened, this was a pretty big time operation. This was one of the bigger mines around. So but glad Grandpa was able to make the trip, and I think we're gonna mosey our way on back out of here. What were you saying?
I can remember the first time I didn't meet Bob. I saw Bob. I was a cheerleader. I went to school at St. Pius. He went to school at St. Paul's. We had a basketball game up there that night, and he came in to the door, and we're just watching him, you know. And one of my friends said, that boy over there, his dad got killed in the coal mine, and they're really rich.
That was a misconception back then, wasn't it?
It was. I thought, well, he never got any of it. But anyway, I just, you know, and that about 4 years later, here I was. He was coming to Troy and at a free show, and that's when I met him. Cheap.
All right, Gunner, how's your first trip back here? What'd you think?
Good.
Good? What'd you think?
It's cool.
Is it pretty neat? Is it what you thought it was going to be?
No, I don't think so. Gunny asked when we were getting to go in the mine. We didn't explain to him what we were going to see before
there's
we
not
left,
much to go into
so
anymore.
they didn't know what was happening.
That's Mommy's second time there. What'd you think?
I remembered it once we got back there. The trip back I couldn't remember, but I spotted it as soon as we got back in there.
You think you guys want to come back here again one day?
Maybe when you're older.
When you're older? Appreciate
Maybe
it.
when you have your own kids one day. Bring them here.
Think you remember how to get here?
I don't know.
All right, let's wrap this one. Head out, kiddos. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed the trip up to the mine site there. As you can see, my grandpa, after all these years, still gets emotional talking about that. But I've tried to piece together over the years what have happened. I've heard from multiple different family members and multiple different stories, and I kind of got a little bit of a picture painted in my mind of how this all went down. So the Christmas mine is the mine they were operating. They operated it for about 4 or 5 years, and from my understanding, this mine was abandoned, and Jacob and Sylvester bought this mine, pumped the water out of it, and reopened it. And they mined there for about 4 years, and they were getting to the end. So this is a little bit of a map I've drawn of the mine. And if you guys can see, it actually entered over here. This black outline is the ridge top of the hill. The mine entered over here. They kind of followed the seam on through, and they were pretty close to being ready to punch out on the other side here. So in this area right here where I've got circled, is actually where the collapse happened. And from what I've gathered, they were getting pretty close to being mined out. They noticed some signs of the mine shifting, moving, changing. I don't know if that was some crumbs on the ground or some noises they were hearing, but something alerted them that the mine was changing. So the story goes, they actually took a wood post and kind of wedged it up in there somewhat loosely, and the next day they come back, it was a little bit tighter, and the next day they come back, it was a little bit tighter, and long story short, the post got tight, which this told them the ceiling is collapsing. It is coming down. So my uncle Sylvester pretty much begged them to abandon ship, leave the mine, and go. And from what I've gathered, the reason why my great-grandfather was so adamant about going back in the mine is back then they used mules or horses, and they used some sort of animal, and they would actually pull these coal carts up out of the mine. And they were pretty much ahead of their time back then. They actually went to a local machine shop in town, and they built what they called the electric mule. And basically this was a little small electric locomotive, and they actually used it to pull the cars up out of the mine, and they were able to pull more coal and pull it faster, and they didn't have to maintain the animals. And from my understanding, this particular electric mule used a different type of rail track. So that's why he was wanting to go back to get this track, because he was wanting to use it for the other mines. So a couple days before the actual fatal collapse, from what I understand, they had a small collapse. And Jacob and my great-grandfather and a few of these wanted to go back in the mine to get this track. Again, his brother was begging him not to do it. He went back down there. And I don't know the exact timeline, but from what I gather, his brother Sylvester was in the mine within hours before the fatal collapse, basically begging him to come out. And obviously he didn't listen, and himself and a few others perished down there. So back to my little map I've got drawn here. From what I gathered, they started back here pulling track out, and they were coming out with their track, and they were actually right here somewhere. This whole mine, I believe, is about a mile long and is about 160 feet deep. They were about 160 feet from the entrance. There was actually 4 of them in there. One of the remains was actually found and brought out through the entrance. They believe the other one survived the collapse and actually went over to the vent pipe, which is where you've seen us here in the video. I've heard multiple different stories. I've heard some people they actually heard them pecking on the pipe. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but the reality of it is there was 4 of them that perished in this accident. Jacob Harpenow, which was 40 years old, James Kellums, which was 57, and Thomas McAllister, which was 44. Now, there was multiple rescue attempts to enter the mine and try to at least get the remains of the bodies or any survivors if they were. There's a lot of articles wrote about this, a lot of stuff's been documented about it. But from what I understand, these efforts went on. This accident happened December 16th, and these efforts went on to December 24th. And basically the mine was deemed too unsafe to enter. And there was another collapse a couple days later that completely closed off the entrance to the mine, and pretty much no chance of getting in. Now, by today's standards, this is a pretty shallow mine, and if they were still alive, probably would have been a pretty simple rescue operation. But keep in mind, this was 1948, and things are quite a bit different back then than what they are today. So hopefully that kind of maybe paints a little better picture of the story you heard Grandpa and a few others at the mine site talking about. I've heard a lot of different people talk about this, and I finally just recently able to kind of get my head wrapped around about the placement and how everything happened. Up until about a month ago, I actually thought the entrance of the mine was right there where the mine shaft was at. I didn't realize that was actually the tail end of the mine. So. But yeah, one other thing I just want to kind of hit on and say here a little bit, you know, there's things like Grandpa can remember the day that happened to him like it was yesterday. I mean, you guys heard him paint the picture, and I've heard him tell that story numerous times. And unfortunately, whenever I was 22 years old or 21 years old, my dad got killed. And there's things about that day I remember the same he remembers about his day. But one thing I do remember from that time, anybody that's had, and I know a lot of people out there have had tragic accidents, but anybody that's had a tragic accident or lived through something like that, there's things that just stick with you over time. And one of the things that stick with me over time is I remember very vividly how whenever Dad got killed, how that affected Grandpa. I know that brought up a lot of emotions for him and took him right back there to 1948. And yeah, it's just kind of, I understand where he's coming from, where you just got those things ingrained in your head and they just don't get out. So I'm sure a lot of you guys got a lot of similar stories, but I'm gonna stop rambling on here. It's a little piece of our family history. If you guys can see that building things and running businesses and doing stuff out of the norm has been in my family for every bit of 3 generations. I never met my great grandpa, obviously, but I get compared to him quite a bit about how I operate and go about things. And I've learned a lot from my grandpa over the years. He's been a great mentor, especially in business. So, like I said, guys, a little bit of a different video. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you on the next one.